back to you, Jay.
Okay. So stage three is where we're very specific now to an opportunity. So in stage one, we said, let's go sell to MRMC as an example up at Fort Detrick. Stage two, we've covered the landscape, we've done our research, and we've found out that there's probably 5 or 6 RFPs coming out over the next few months that we want to go after. And so we start to kind of get our strategy set along those 6 RFPs. In stage three, what we typically find is an opportunity starts to get very specific. So now you're starting to zoom in a little bit further on a very specific RFP that you want to pursue. And during a stage three, you're typically trying to get more exposure to the client because it's very different than the commercial sector. In the government sector, once RFP comes out, then the communication is fairly limited and to keep certainly everything above board and everybody on an equal playing field, as opposed to commercial where typically the levels of discussion are greater. So in government, you need to make sure that you're getting as much insight and knowledge as you can before the RFP. And as Joel mentioned, you want to be talking to potential teaming partners to further your value proposition as to what you believe is going to be in that RFP and what that client is actually looking for. As I mentioned earlier in stage two, in stage three, you definitely want to make sure a lot of this work is done before the release, right, where you're getting to know their needs, you're getting to understand the stakeholders and the decision-making process, what they're looking for, your competition strengths and weaknesses. And when you look at those strengths and weaknesses of your competition and what the client's working for, you can then start to do what we call a capabilities gap fit analysis. This is where you list the requirements out and say, you know what, these 15 requirements here, we as a company are very, very strong at doing that. We have a good, compelling story. We have excellent past performance, and we've got the right people to do it. But these 5 requirements over here, that's really not something we do very well. We need to go find a partner to do that. The other thing you might be looking at in gap fit analysis is if there are any socioeconomic set-aside requirements that you expect to be included in this RFP. So if you are a large prime and you are expecting this RFP to come out, there's a very good chance that if it's an unrestricted RFP, that it's going to have some requirements for set-asides or small business participation. So you need to start looking at some companies that can meet those not only socioeconomic requirements, but also bring capability and value such that they're actually enhancing your solution and increasing your capability and ability to win. Let's go to the next one, Joel. Stage 3, again, you're really focused on getting answers and strategies to write that winning proposal. In stage 3, you're starting to think now about your winning proposal. And here's where, again, your value proposition starts to come in. Earlier on in our presentation, we talked about your corporate value proposition. What do you bring as a company? Now you're translating that value proposition into what is my value to this customer's issue and services that they're trying to procure? What are your win themes? We generally recommend anywhere no more from 3 to maybe 4, but generally 3 is about the right number. 3 win themes to start developing for a proposal. That way it's easy for the client to kind of keep hearing and looking at a consistent theme that they're seeing as to why to pick you. You want to know your relevant past performance and key personnel that you may think about once putting in the proposal once that RFP comes out. Looking at your past performance and seeing if it's still relevant once the RFP comes out is too late because you may have an issue with that past performance. Perhaps there's a delivery issue occurring on an account today that you weren't aware of. Or perhaps the client that may have been your best reference in that past performance is no longer in that organization. So it's important early on to start identifying the 4 or 5, whatever many past performances you may need, and making sure that they're still referenceable and that your client would give you a good reference, or the CPAR is still accessible in the system. Same thing for key personnel. Are they the right people? Are they going to be available? And then you're starting to really kind of outline your technical approach during this stage, as well as looking at pricing. Determining pricing once RFP comes out, you're obviously going to be doing that. But before the RFP is out, you want to have a pretty good understanding of what do you think this opportunity is truly worth to your organization, and what do you think the price to win is going to be. Sometimes we all do cost build-up. A lot of times you have to take a step back and look and say, what is the price that the market will bear in terms of what are the values on other contracts that they've awarded of similar scope and services. And then the last bullet is, once the RFP comes out, you're going to need people. And so we suggest that before the RFP comes out in stage 3, that's when you really want to start lining up your technical team, your product management team, your pricing people, whoever you may need to pull this RFP together. And then, of course, for my partner in contracting, there's activities that have to happen in contracting as well. They are a very important part of this stage in stage 3 because, again, we're getting much more closer to the RFP release. So, Joel, what do we need to be doing in this stage?
Thanks, Jay. Basically, like I said earlier, do your homework and get a lot of the administrivia done beforehand before the RFP is released. And by that, again, I'm just referring back to the teaming agreements and NDAs and any other agreements that your company is going to make with other companies to team, just because it takes cycles to make sure those documents are completed, signed, and ready to go so that you can focus on putting together that great proposal once the RFP is released. Also, participate in the win themes in the contract incentive discussions with the proposal writing team. This includes the sales team, like with Jay. It includes the executives and upper management at your company. As the contracts managers, is really important because you're basically taking the sales language and the proposed approaches that are going to be written in the proposal, and you're confirming their legality and making sure that you're still meeting the actual requirement of the RFP so that you submit a compliant proposal that basically scratches the government's itch and that you ensure that it meets their requirement and that it's a superior solution. And then remember, don't forget you're legally obligating your company by submitting the proposal. So again, it all comes down to compliance. You want to make sure that you are offering a superior product or service, but make sure that everything is in order contractually and that all your representation certifications, everything else is in compliance with the request for proposal so that you're ensured that you have a really strong chance of winning the contract. So I'm going to turn it back to Jay now to discuss the enabling technology that we use.
Sure. Very good. So, folks, at this point, we're going to kind of take a little change of course of direction here. Just to kind of summarize, in that first part with those 6 steps, those are sort of the foundational things that we felt as an organization you need to be ready to do. What are you selling? What's your value? What's your marketing budget? What's your sales budget? What performance metrics are you going to look at? Are you compliant? Okay, what's your marketing message? So those are the foundational things. Stage 1 said, okay, where are we going to go sell our services? What client base has a need for our services? Stage 2 says, well, it's in this organization, and we're going to look at these potential RFPs, these potential opportunities. It might be 6, 10, 12, it might be a whole bunch of them, but you're building that pipeline at that point. Stage 3, which we just went through, is now you're zooming in on a very specific opportunity, saying, well, let's start to get our competitive information. Let's start to understand how are we best positioned to win this opportunity and help this client. But all along those stages, 1, 2, and 3, I would strongly suggest your emphasis has to be very much on your customer and these agencies and what they're trying to do, their budget situations, the goals that they're trying to achieve, and how you can help them, and getting to know these organizations. Most of these organizations are very busy, and they're not going to spend the time, the people in these organizations, these departments, to educate you on what they're doing. They expect you to make that step and to understand them. And once you demonstrate that to them, they will be more than happy to sit with you and kind of disclose and tell you, obviously in a very fair manner, what their issues are and what they're trying to achieve. So let's get to enabling technology. These are some of the things that we think can help you along these different stages. One is set up a SharePoint site or some sort of document repository in your company where all this information, whether it be your account growth plans, your client data, your specific capture plans for information, make sure all that information is in a central site such that it can be shared and leveraged instead of being looked for. You want to make sure this information is there in one spot and everyone can get to it. Second bullet is you want to look at lead generation tools, and these are tools that can help you, as Joel mentioned, about understanding new RFPs coming out and industry data. Input is a great example of this. They pull a lot of data from different organizations. And, of course, the Fort Detrick Business Development Office does a great job in terms of pushing out emails and opportunities. So there's a lot of good stuff out there. Customer relationship management tools, you want to obviously keep track of your pipeline and the organizations and people that you're contacting. We at CSA, we're a big proponent of Salesforce.com. It's a very inexpensive solution and gives you tons of capability in terms of managing your pipeline, generating reports, and keeping track of all your engagements and contacts with different customers. So you need something to kind of track yourself in terms of what your pipeline's worth, the opportunities that they are and what stage they're in, and the different types of analytics that you need. Fourth bullet is really about website performance. As we mentioned earlier, that you're going to find that your website's probably going to be more and more used. So what are the analytics? Google Analytics is free. You can put it on your website, It'll kind of tell you what your performance are, who's coming to it, and most importantly, what are they looking at on your website. And it'll tell you where the most popular pages are, and you can play with those and enhance them, and you can see if your message is getting through. And then, of course, there's some contract management sites that Joel spends his time on. So, Joel, why don't you kind of review those for us?
Sure. First and foremost, I would find whatever acquisition regulations tend to apply most to your clients, find the online version of that, of those regulations. And the reason why I say that, I'm personally more of a book guy than a computer guy. I prefer to review a document as a printout than on a computer screen. But the beauty of using these online sources is that these acquisition regulations is the fact that they're always up to date, and so you can always be certain that the information you're getting really is the latest and the greatest. And that's really important. So I would suggest finding whatever online version of acquisition regulations your companies tend to use, and use those rather than a thick book on your desk. Also, if you want to learn really good background on contracts management processes, the various terms of art in contracts management and the processes. The contracts management process guide is really useful. The web address is there also. And then finally, as Jay had said, the Fort Detrick Business Development Office has a lot of really good contracts management information on it, just so that you could get learned up on the overall contracts management processes that we use. A lot of good information there, so I'd encourage you to check out their website too. So now we're going to move into our summary. Thanks, Jay. Back to you.
Yep. So on recommendations, folks just kind of want to give you some key takeaways. We've covered a lot of ground here, and then we'll open it up to questions, I believe, Gloria.
Yeah.
Is on the sales side is again, spend the time to really understand what your value and your differentiating way that you can help a client. Focus on that client and what is your value to them. Why should they hire you in order to help them achieve what they're trying to get done? That's very important, especially in this very crowded marketplace. And some of the markets that we all compete in, especially in some of the services areas and support contractor areas, the barriers to entry are very low. It's very difficult, very hard to set up a business in some of these areas. So it's very important to make sure you stand out. I mentioned earlier, research your clients. They're not going to spend the time, nor do they have the time to educate you on what they're trying to achieve. So make sure you're putting the effort in to understand what they are. They will appreciate it, and it shows that you're paying attention to them and you're committed to working in your organization. You need the team. There's very few organizations in the world today that can be the end-all, be-all for their clients. So it's important to bring the best solution and best knowledge to a client RFP and a client engagement. So look to team as well as look to find the right teams. As I mentioned earlier, you may have some socioeconomic requirements in there, but find the right companies. Don't just look for those companies because they happen to be a veteran-owned company and meet the socioeconomic. That's only one requirement. They need to be able to deliver, and they need to be able to add value to your team to help you win. Joel's covered it very extensively, I think, and well in terms of being compliant and know your client's rules and behaviors. Salespeople by nature are very optimistic and tend to, look at things in a very positive way and maybe not see things that could be potential hiccups. So partnering with your contracts people to give you that balance of potential issues is important. I've sometimes heard of contracts people as the deal killers. It certainly hasn't been my experience, and certainly not with Joel. But if you have a good relationship with your contracts people inside your business, then they will help you and understand what you're trying to achieve. And guys, I have found give very, very solid advice that, again, you can pass on to not only your program manager if you're open to have discussions with them on the government side, but also the contracting officer as well. Clear roles and responsibilities. Again, you want to make sure that the organization, your company, isn't tripping over itself and presenting multiple faces and multiple messages to your clients or potential clients. You want to make sure there's a consistent message going through, and there's a consistent accountability that when the customer thinks of your organization, that they can name two people that they know that they typically deal with. And finally, like anything in this world today, you have to measure performance. It is a long sales cycle, so it's important to know to be able to gather information and make sure you're making progress. Joel, how about you hit the contracts ones?
Thanks, Jay. I'll just summarize the key contracts management considerations that you should have from our webinar today and that we've discussed. First of all, make sure, again, your contracts management processes are in order. Are your current registrations valid in the various databases we talked about? Are your major contracts management issues resolved so that you can work on the RFP that's just come out and put together a great proposal and not have to worry about a bunch of other ancillary issues on your existing contracts? Are you registered, again, in the proper federal databases? Again, critical to be registered in the CCR and on the ORCA. Are you also eligible to register under the SBA and the VA? Are those applicable? Again, a lot of good opportunities there, especially specific set-asides that you could be eligible for if you indeed make those requirements. Also, like Jay had said, you got to coordinate with your sales team. Now you could stay up to date on all the opportunities and the intelligence out there. Most of the time, the sales guys will find out and be the first on the ground to identify opportunities. But as contracts managers, a lot of the time you can hear the information directly from the horse's mouth, again, in a fair manner from the contracting officer and the contracts personnel. But you need to work closely with them to make sure that you stay in line with your company's overall vision. Also, know your government agency contracting procedures. Know the acquisition regulations that are used. It's the FAR, the VAR, any other local regulations that are specific to the command. Also, subscribe to e-commerce sites. Those are really important to find out any good early information so that you're fully up to date on whether you want to bid on an upcoming opportunity or any changes to existing opportunities. Finally, know your organization's hot issues and your contracting officer. Again, that way you can make sure that you're putting together a fully compliant proposal and that you're on good terms enough with the PCO so that you can call them up and get any clarification if necessary. Again, they have to provide that information to all companies, but it just makes it a lot easier to pick up the phone to ask them if you already have some kind of rapport established. And that's all part of doing your homework prior to the RFP release, again, so you could spend time writing that strong proposal. And the last bullet, finally, is do your homework beforehand, such as getting your subcontractor NDA and teaming agreements in place, and make sure that no OCIs exist. It makes your life a heck of a lot easier so that when you bid on an opportunity, you know that you're free and clear so that you could spend your time putting together that proposal that's going to win.
Very good. So, folks, we've taken you up through the point where pre-RFP and any day now you would be expecting that RFP to come out. You've done your homework. You understand what the client's looking for. They've met you or they know about you, and you have a pretty good team established, and now you're just waiting for that day when that email comes across your desk that the RFP has been released. And that topic is what we'll talk about in August. We'll walk through that proposal process and how you translate a lot of the things that we've done in sales here now into a written proposal that the client is going to read and evaluate. And then Joel's going to talk about the very important steps in terms of requirements management and traceability and compliance to make sure that that great technical proposal that you put in is also a contractually compliant proposal and in a fair position to be evaluated. So, Gloria, I think we'll pass it back to you, and if there's any questions, we'd certainly be open to answer them.
Yes, there are. They've been coming in fast and furious, and we're ready to go. We have about 9 minutes as we go through the rest of today. Thank you both to Jay and Joel for your very solid information. And what we're going to do is take a few minutes now for questions. If you'd like to call them or type them in on the chat or ask them verbally, just let us know. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and answer all of the ones that have come in through email. And I'll start off with the first email question. And I don't know if how you guys feel about this one, but Frank asks, I'll sell whatever they buy. How do I know what to start with in defining the market?
You'll sell whatever they buy. Well, Frank, I love your energy. That's fantastic. I think what you have to do, Frank, is in define stage is you really got to get into that definition of what does your company or your service offer. I'll go back to, again, my example that at our firm there are certain things that we do that really just have no application to certain parts of the federal government. We don't have the expertise, or it's just not the capability that they perhaps need. So it is a big market out there. There's certainly a lot of opportunity, but the successful sales organizations will know to zero in on specific agencies, to build those relationships, to get to know them. And really in that define phase is to find out through their websites, through their strategic plans, through looking at past RFPs, through looking at upcoming recompetes, what are the things that are coming up that I myself have a good value proposition and differentiator to sell to them.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Rhonda that says, we are starting in this market and have been successful in commercial. can we have the same sales reps work the government sector, or do we need to hire new people?
Well, Rhonda, I think on that one, it kind of depends on where they are geographically, but I can speak from experience. I've covered both commercial and government. Your sales reps, I would suggest that they're probably going to need to understand the procurement rules and processes. It is a little bit different in terms of how communications occur, terms and conditions, transparency, and so forth. But that would really, I think, be more of a determination in terms of your sales reps, their time, their quotas that they may be carrying, what type of expectations you have on them, if they can, in fact, cover more of the federal government territory. Assuming all that is yes, they can, then having them spend a little bit of time with some experienced federal sales reps and telling them the differences between the two markets would be effective, and we'd certainly be happy to have that conversation. It can be done, but it is a little bit different. It takes a little time for them to understand the rules.
And we had a number of questions come in about one of the slides early on, which talked about accounting, and essentially this one question sums it all up. We use QuickBooks. How do I find out if it's an approved accounting system?
Joe, you want me to take that one, or you want to take that?
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, the Defense Contracts Administration Agency, DCAA, or Audit Agency, rather, does maintain a list of accounting systems that are qualified. I do know of several firms that are using QuickBooks. Off the top of my head, folks, I could not say for sure if DCAA would consider that a certified, cost accounting system for cost-plus contracts. But if you go to the DCAA website, you can find information on those systems, and there's probably a help desk number that you could call as well.
I believe Deltek uses a variety of DCAA-approved cost accounting systems, Jay. Is that true?
Right, that's correct. The most common system used in the government marketplace for accounting systems is by a company called Deltek, and that's D-E-L-T-E-K. And they are the most common application you see. We use them here at the CSA. It really, that Deltek investment can depend on the size of your organization. It's not an inexpensive solution, but it's very comprehensive. So you may want to look at that Deltek in terms of size of your revenues and size of your contracts that's necessary for that investment. But I think if you check Deltek, check DCAA, DCAA should definitely give you a list of software packages that are considered to be compliant.
Very good. And we have a question coming in from Nick that says, I find it easy to get in touch with the small business folks, but I have no idea how to find out who the program managers are or the people you say to build relationships beyond program managers. How do I find them?
Sure. And that's a great question, Nick. And I think all organizations that are small, mid-sized, kind of struggle with that. The Small Business Administration can help you, as well as in a specific agency, they have small business offices. And organizations like Fort Detrick's Business Development Office can help you with obtaining the organizational charts for these organizations. It really does kind of start at the org chart level. You can also get some of these org charts through services like Input. They can provide those charts to you. You'll sometimes see it in strategic plans. So it's a matter of spending some time in the agency's websites and leveraging some of their supporting organizations like their small business offices to help give you a listing of the PMs in the organizations. My experience, Nick, is that I think Defense Department tends to be a little bit more open with that type of information. Some of the civilian agencies may be a little bit more close-held, but it just takes some stamina to work with the various agencies and departments to start combing through the various online or offline information you can find, working your network and seeing out who the PMs are.
Also, Jay, if I may add, my experience has been, both as a federal employee now and being in the private sector as a contracts manager, that the small business offices at these individual commands really are pretty much an open book and very willing to help the small businesses in terms of connecting them with the right people. And so I would encourage you, like Jay said, get involved at the agency level and talk to their specific small business offices. Again, my experience is that they work closely with the contract shop at these commands, and so they generally are pretty open about getting you in touch with the proper people or the program personnel so that you can start building relationships and getting information with them.
And that's a perfect segue. I'd like to introduce Christine Demas. She is the director of the Fort Detrick Business Development Office and is responsible for the overall operation and management of the FDBDO. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you, Gloria.
What would you like to tell us? We have a few minutes as we wrap up. I know you've got a full schedule coming up, and you want to share contact information and the last action item so people know how to take advantage of all you offer.
Okay. Well, this was a great seminar today, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
And I want to remind everyone that they can still ask questions even afterwards by just emailing us at ask@fdbdo.com. And we will get them either to Jay or Joel or get them answered to you, get you an answer right back. But I also want to remind everyone that they can also go to our website and check out the upcoming classes. We have a number of classes coming up, everything from intro to federal contracting to how to market to the federal government. But let's not forget the main thing, which is Jay and Joel's second class, which is the follow-on to this one, and that will be held August 25th. And it's another webinar, so it'll be easy to attend, and we hope to see everyone there. So I encourage them to check out our website at www.fdbdo.com.
And if they would want to call you, what phone number should they use, Christine?
The number is 301-620-7071.
Very good. And the contact information is on your screen right now for Jay Heroux and Joel Judy. If you have a contact or questions you'd like to ask them directly, feel free to get in touch with them individually. And also make sure you do sign up register as a contractor on the Fort Detrick Business Development Office website at www.fdbdo.com. That will open up the door to you to a wealth of contracting opportunities, especially when you have someone like Christine working on your behalf to open up those doors. It's time for us to wrap up our webinar right now. We're right on time. And this is Gloria Larkin, President of Target Gov. It's our pleasure to be teaming with the Fort Detrick Business Development Office to bring you these informative webinars with subject matter experts like Jay Heroux and Joel Judy. We'll look forward to providing you with future sessions, and you can always access these 24/7 through the Fort Detrick Business Development Office. Thank you, everybody. It's time for us to say goodbye, and let's go do some business.
Thank you.
So long.
Everyone.